All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Nick Rowe, Senior Vice President, Local Market Executive here in Northern Nevada for Bank of America, and proud today to present this conversation in partnership with the Barracuda Championship around DEIB and really just around diversity in the game of golf. At Bank of America, our purpose is really to improve financial lives through the power of every connection. And we truly put a focus on advancing racial equality. And that's something that really comes out of really longstanding commitment to diversity and inclusion within our organization. And our really goal of making the communities that we live in a better place to work, live, and play. And so, one of the things that we always are looking at is the ability of individuals and families to improve their economic mobility, the ability to move up in the spectrum. And a lot of times those issues of racial equity and economic mobility are really intertwined. So with that, we have a great panel today that we want to hear from, and really around diversity in the game of golf. So without further ado, I will pass it over to our moderator, Diaz Dixon. Over to you, Diaz.
Thanks, Nick. I appreciate you passing it along, and there's an even greater appreciation for you and Bank of America for what you're doing in the sponsorship along with Barracuda Championship. It's so important for us to have these conversations about DEI and B and how it's impacting us in the world and how we can get better at it. But we can't do it without having the great resources and the powerful resources such as Bank of America, giving us an opportunity to have a safe place to share our voices and talk about the differences and the improvements that need to be made. So thank you very much for giving us this opportunity. And I am Diaz Dixon, and I am super proud and happy to be here because we've got some dynamite people sitting on this panel. When Keelan Poland first asked me if I wanted to be a part of this, I think I probably did a backflip a couple of times, because having the opportunity to talk about golf and diversity at the same time, and to be able to have this list of names that came forward, I couldn't, there's no way I could ever resist. So I'm broadcasting here from Reno, Nevada. I'm originally from Vegas, a lot of golf courses down there. I didn't fall in love with the game of golf till probably about 20 years ago. Being a former basketball player, I needed to have some type of transition of something that could be competitive for me and something that I could push myself in. And it's one of those places on the course that the game does not discriminate. So if you're going to hit a slice, it doesn't matter who you are, you're going to hit a slice. But it is also a game that has not been historically open to a lot of people. And so that's what we're going to dive in and talk a little bit about today. So without further ado, I need to get in and give the voices to the ones that really matter here today. We've got an all-star cast, and I will introduce Roger, David, Jackie, and Laz to talk individually about what they're doing, but also collaboratively. Why don't I start right now with each and every one of you, and I'll start with you, Laz, and you want to give a little bit of introduction as to who you are, and we'll work our way around, and how are you related to the game of golf?
Yeah, thank you, Diaz. My name is Laz Versalles. I'm a proud native of Minneapolis, Minnesota. I now live in Santa Monica. I moved here to the desert of California, the Coachella Valley, the Palm Springs area in 2005. I was in the golf business, and I was head pro at a club there. I left the golf business in 2008, and I've kind of rejoined it as part of the Fire Pit Collective. We are a collection of storytellers, and most of what I do revolves around how our game touches culture, kind of some of the history of the game, a little bit about architecture. And we're about a year old. So we're a new media company. And I was able to attend the Barracuda last year, really fell in love with the Reno area. I thought it was very beautiful. And the tournament and all the people around it have been great partners of the Fire Pit. So couldn't say no to this opportunity. So thank you for including us.
Fantastic. And if you guys have not heard of the Fire Pit Collective, you can Google it and check it out. It's there's some amazing work being done there. Thank you, Laz, for jumping in on that. Jackie, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, Laz is a tough act to follow. My name is Jackie Thomas. I am actually currently the newest member, I think, of the Reno Tahoe Open Foundation that actually produces the Barracuda tournament. So that is my connection to being here. I am like you, Diaz. I'm a former athlete that needed to find some way to continue my competitive juices, and found a game of golf through some recommendations of some friends, and it's been life-changing. I absolutely love the game, and like you, I've been playing for about 20 years, and unfortunately, my game doesn't reflect the length of time that I've been playing. Everyone who plays the game knows length of time has nothing to do with confidence. But I've done many things in my career. I've worked for the leading sports and fitness brand in the world for many years as a marketing executive. And so hopefully my perspective about growing the game and demand creation is something that I'll bring to the table.
Fantastic, fantastic, and don't undersell yourself on that. As she's generically talking about what she's done, without a doubt, Jackie, you are a big mover of the needle in the game as well as in athletics altogether. So it's great to have you here. Why don't we pass it along now? We'll put it down to Roger. Raj, why don't you give us a little bit of your background?
How you all doing? My name is Roger Steele. I was born and raised on the west side of Chicago. My father was a Chicago police officer. He introduced me to the game when I was a kid as a way to keep me away from some of the different things that were going on in the city and that were kind of grabbing hold of the youth. So golf was like something that I was introduced to, on more interesting terms. I didn't really fall in love with the game until I was an adult. A lot of that was because there weren't a lot of communities built around fostering, youth connection around the sport. There weren't a lot of resources, not a lot of golf courses that we had access to or that we could afford. And so as an adult, when I started to make my own money and spend it on the game, I really found a deeper appreciation for what this sport meant to not just networking and seeing more of the world, but also how I just closed cultural gaps. I was spending time with people that I never thought that I'd spend time with, and that's athletes, that's top executives, different personalities. And I've never seen anything in life that's been able to bridge the gaps that this game of golf has. And so since then, I've been really trying to advocate for everybody to pick up a club, no matter where you come from, and really trying to identify resources for people to grab onto the game relative to their communities and things that they have access to. And I've landed some really good partnerships. I'm working with Nike now and Callaway and some different brands, to name a few. And I've really reaped the benefits of the things that are changing about the golf landscape. So that's me in a nutshell, just over here being a little golf personality of sorts.
That's great, Raj, because what you're doing is you're bringing a different voice and a different flavor to the game. And like you were saying, you didn't gain that passion till later, like most of us, because we're a product of our environment and experiences. We don't have people who look like us that we could turn on the TV and they were playing golf. So it wasn't something that was even within our realm. So thank you for sharing that. And we're lucky to have you on the landscape. I'm going to go ahead and jump to our last guest right here. David Lingmerth, will you tell us a little bit about, we've got one pro that's sitting here on the screen, which is great to be able to take your time to come out and share this time with us. David, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me, and good to see you all and hear your stories. My name is David Lingmerth. I grew up in Sweden. Started playing golf around 6 or 7 years old, and I also had a big passion for hockey, but eventually golf took over. And in 07, I came over and went to college, ended up at University of Arkansas. And after that, was able to turn pro. And now I've been able to make a living playing golf around the world, around the country for I guess since 2010. So, been very fortunate. Golf has given me a lot, and it's brought me many cool places, and met a lot of cool people. And it's just an awesome game. And, it's a game that's big all around the world. It's, it should be open and available to anyone who wants to play it. And, I hope together with initiatives like this, we can make that happen.
Fantastic, David. It's not only is it great for you to be here, you're now giving me someone extra to cheer for on Sunday.
Yeah.
So, and it's be really interesting to hear even your perspective coming from Sweden, because we know that when we're looking at the term diversity, that it's very different from different country to country. And you went down and played golf at the University of Arkansas. You played in the South, and the South is a place that oftentimes when we're looking at the equity inclusion piece, it is very apparent that there are differences in large large borders between groups, particularly having access to things not only as golf, but restaurants and different areas where people live. So super happy to have you here. I can see that this is already going to shape up to be some wonderful conversation. I'm going to throw this back at Laz just to start it, but I want you guys all to chime in. When we're looking at the game of golf, why do we think there is a lack? And this isn't just for Laz. We're going to start with you, Laz. Why is there a lack of people of color that are playing the game?
Are you saying in the recreational level? I'll answer it both ways, right?
Yes.
From the professional level, there is direct connection to when people started to use the golf cart as a primary means of getting around a golf cart. And when clubs, by the way, the golf cart largely born in Palm Springs at Thunderbird Country Club. When the golf cart became part and parcel of the golf experience, it killed the caddy yards. So a lot of the top professionals that didn't come from families of means that were players of color came out of the caddy yards. In fact, almost all of them, with exception of Calvin Peete, whether we're talking about Jim Dent, it doesn't really matter. Like, you can go back and look at where they all learned the game. Lee Elder learned caddying here in Los Angeles. That's where they came from. So when that avenue to the game left, that takes out a lot of Black players. It takes out a lot of Latino players. It takes out a lot of poor white guys like Ben Hogan and Gene Saracen and Byron Nelson, names you've probably heard of. If the golf cart would have been around then, it would be essentially a game completely of country club kids from its inception until today. So that piece of technology hurts. I have been covering the country the last year, looking into different neighborhoods on Chicago's West Side, whether we're talking about DC, whether we're talking about South Central Los Angeles, whether we're talking about Wilmington, North Carolina, or Atlanta. There are places where Black people play a lot of golf. They're just ignored by the PGA of America. They're just ignored by organizations that run golf operations. But there's a long and rich history of Black golf in America. And we actually have an organization here called the Western States Golf Association, which people should look into, which was an organization that essentially became the USGA, but for Black people. So you couldn't get a handicap, you couldn't play in tournaments. Don't worry, we'll make our own USGA, we'll create our own handicap system, we'll have our own tournaments. Whether it's the Desert Massey Group in the Phoenix area, which is massive, or the Fun Lovers or the Cosmopolitan Group here in Los Angeles, there are rich and vibrant pockets of Black golf all across the United States. They're just not in, gated community TPC clubs.
That's amazing that, you're able to drop that history on us and think about, that's a lot of stuff I didn't even know, had no clue. I think a majority of people wouldn't even know that. And you can see the parallels that golf has to football, the NFL, or even the NBA, where there were these exclusions and it was a matter of where could the foot be, stuck in the door to be able to open those. And thank you for sharing that. And in many ways, all four of you guys are opening doors. That's what's great. We need to continue to open them. And as I know for Roger, I've actually heard the term that he's one who kicks the doors open. So, and so that they stay open. Any other comments or thoughts?
Hey, Diaz, just one thing to build on what Laz just said. So as somebody that's grown up in the sports, grown up as an athlete, and then actually ventured into the business of sports, it's really interesting how little I also know about the history of African Americans in golf. So Laz did an amazing feature that he sent me last week on, I think the gentleman's name was Bill Stiller. And
yeah, Bill Stiller,
he was one of the very first African-American golfers who actually integrated the game of golf, the PGA Tour. And I had no idea of this rich history until he profiled it. And it's absolutely fascinating. And we got to find a way to get more of these stories out. I mean, yes, Tiger Woods is amazing, but a lot of people laid the groundwork for Tiger Woods. So the extent to which we can actually start to communicate that and get those stories out, I think that's one way to also grow the game. I was absolutely fascinated at this guy. He's essentially the Jackie Robinson of golf.
Wow.
Yeah, that's heavy. And it's like, and you know, for me personally, like, you know, Laz will touch on, you know, the advent of the golf cart and how that impacted, you know, caddies and things of that nature. Something that was interesting about my upbringing is that, like, I had a very rich experience with Black culture and golf as a kid. You know, my father and his friends, I mean, they would play golf, you know, probably 4 or 5 days a week. They would travel together to different, you know, Midwestern cities. They would all take group trips to Florida. So like I saw a large community around Black golf when I was growing up, you know what I mean, relative to my ecosystem. And it was a lot of people that were kind of like in the same boat. You know, they had decent jobs. They were, you know, like, you know, kind of establishing their careers. They had stable family lives. You know, they had the kids, had, you know, two-parent households. They had wives and things of that nature. And I saw that, like, that stability created this affinity for the game. And I think that, you know, something that has kind of like been a detriment to that is not being able to see how those experiences laddered up into more professional opportunities within the sport. So I think about my experience as a kid, like outside of Tiger Woods, who was super inspiring, but I didn't necessarily gravitate to him as like a, like like I always saw my identity residing more within basketball and football. Like when I was looking at people that represented me in other sports, I didn't really have a figure to look to within the golf space. And I think that a lot of kids, like, you know, the children of my father's friends, they kind of had a similar sentiment when they would look to the game. They would obviously see their parents enjoying the sport, but they didn't see a lot of, you know, opportunities for upward mobility within it. You know what I mean? And so I think that when you make kids navigate, like, how am I going to spend my recreational time? A lot of them are choosing things that have more clear pathways to success. You know, not, you know, and then you can't blame people for not choosing to you know, blaze their own trail with respect to this game. But I do think that, you know, my father had figures that represented him. You know, when we talk about Calvin Pete would come to the west side of Chicago and play golf with my dad and his friends, you know, and you had your elite elders and you had people that really existed in those spaces that they could really cling on to and gave them this sense of belonging, you know, within the game at the professional level. And then I think that, like, somewhere along the way, kids, like, you know, from my generation, I don't think that we saw the same opportunities within the sport for whatever reason. And I think that, you know, more recently, before we've had like kind of a bigger boom within it, that was one of the things that attributed to the lull in participation.
Yeah, you know, there's so many things that you just touched on there, Roger. And you know, you having access and actually being able to see it. For me, when I was a younger kid and I lived in the projects, I didn't see golf. So it wasn't something that my dad even had on TV. I remember the first time when we'd moved later and my dad came home because there was a golf convention at the MGM hotel and he had a golf bag and he said, "Look what I got you." And I said, "What's that?" It's it's not round. It's not something I can throw up and enjoy. I was like, "Dad, you can take those back. Take them," because it just I couldn't see myself now I kick myself. I wish I had started playing when I was that young because it's such a beautiful game. David, how long have you been actually golfing? You've been golfing
Well,
since you said you were young, right?
yeah, I was like 6 or 7 years old when I first started trying to ask my dad to let me tag along, you know, when he was going to play with his friends or whatever. So that was my introduction, but you know, it was not very serious for a while. I think I started playing tournaments around 12, and you know, I didn't come from a whole lot of money in Sweden either. I was lucky enough that I have a uncle who works in the golf industry, and he was able to give me some golf clubs. And what was so good with Sweden, the federation over there, they make golf so accessible and available for young kids. They want as many kids as possible to take part in the game and play tournaments, and they make it so affordable. You don't have to, you know, break your bank to go play golf tournaments. They try to make it so that, you know, yeah, just help the parents out, basically, you know, refund whatever, you know, expenditures you might have in many cases. And so I was very lucky to be growing up there and be able to play the tournaments, because I guess, you know, like, that's what we want. Like, golf is a game. You can compete against yourself and try to improve your handicap and all that, but when you start measuring yourself against the other kids, that's when you, I don't know, you develop and you learn to find a passion. You can see yourself maybe want to pursue golf a little bit more than if you're not playing tournaments. It's my opinion, at least. That's
That
kind of
competitive piece.
exactly. So that's kind of how it went down for me, and luckily I was able to play good enough to provide myself with further opportunities down the line. I was accepted into a high school that's kind of like an academy, and I know there's academies and stuff in the US. I'm not all that familiar with how junior golf works over here too well, because I didn't live it. I haven't seen it yet too much. So but I know there's academies over here, but generally I think you kind of pay your way into most of them. This one in Sweden, we had kind of harsh criteria getting in there, but it was solely on golf ability, and there were some physical tests, and there were some interviews we had to do, and you had to be good in school and whatnot. It had nothing to do about where you came from or how much money you had. It was just a straight up selection process, and I developed a lot those years in college. When I was accepted there, it was too good of an opportunity to pass up. I unfortunately had to quit playing ice hockey, but that opportunity was so great, and it eventually got me into college, and just steamroll. just kept on going from there.
That's all worked out.
Yeah.
So what I hear you saying is access. That's one of the things that's very different in Sweden and here. And I think what goes along with that access is also kind of the marketing piece and how you set it up, right, Jackie?
David, first of all, I've seen your quads. I'm a huge fan. I'm happy you're not a hockey player and you're a golfer, because with those legs, you would definitely have been a great hockey player. It's a really interesting dynamic between the US kind of amateur sports situation versus a lot of the European sports federations, where, if you just take a look at the athletes that we have coming up now, a lot of them actually have to have, even when they're professional athletes in maybe some non-traditional sports, they still have to have jobs, right, to pay their way. So our sports system is set up very differently than the European sports system. But that said, I think you're spot on. It is about access. If you grow up as a kid, an urban kid, an inner city kid, whether you're a poor Black kid or a poor white kid, right, you have a lot of the same challenges. And one of the challenges that you have is if you play a traditional sport like basketball, which I think 3 of us or 4 of us on this panel grew up playing, you don't have to supply the basketball. You maybe have to get a pair of sneakers, but somebody's going to provide the hoop, or you're going to find the hoop in your community, and all you need is a ball and maybe a way to get some air in that ball, right? But you can get out and play, and there are lots of opportunities to get access to them. If you decide that you want to play the game of golf, that's a whole different ball game in the US. You do have to have some kind of financial backing. And if you can't see it, you can't be it. And even if you want to be it because you've seen it, you got to find a way to fund it. So for me, when you think about growing the game of golf for young kids, young urban kids, there's certainly a recreational piece where most of us can find our way into it as we get older and have a little bit more access. But if you really want to grow the game, you got to grow the game from a youth perspective in the US. And that means that you have to be very intentional about how you get kids access and how you meet them where they are. And David was very fortunate. He had an infrastructure, an ecosystem around him that allowed him to do that. And we have to challenge ourselves to find that same ecosystem and put it around these kids that we know probably have the same talent that Tiger had, maybe not exactly the same talent, but have the capacity. And how do we nurture that? And how do we give those kids an opportunity to nurture that talent? And until we do that, we're going to always wind up with a pretty significant gap. And I think that's the challenge for us as we go forward.
Whether it's Sweden or whether it's Norway or whether it's Australia, you can look at or Cuba, you can look at a medal count and you can say, all right, what are these countries that all have somewhere between, say, I think Sweden's 12 million people. I think Norway's a little less than that. Australia might be more. But what they have in common is this cultural buy-in from the government to subsidize these kids that test in. And if you're a good baseball player in Havana, by the time you're 9, you're living a different life than the other kids that are 9. Absolutely. You're going to a different school, just as David did. And it's that way in Helsinki. It's that way in Oslo. It's that way in Perth. There are schools that kids don't have to be rich to go to. The closest thing in golf that we have here is the ability for people to kick in to play to youth on course. Frankly, I'll just plug them right now. They will subsidize golf at it's almost 2,000 courses where you can show up and pay $5 and you're in and you're playing. And it's not just the chance at being able to play at a high level and be like David and have a chance to earn scholarship. But Roger and I talk about this a lot. It's not just scholarship, it's relationship. And that is so critical. And right now more than ever, you know? And so essentially Sweden through taxes subsidizes that effort. We as golfers and of the golf community have to contribute to 100-hole hikes, have to find a way to support organizations like Youth on Course who directly affect a kid's day. I could drop off my 11-year-old daughter, give her $10 for golf and lunch, see you later, see you in 4 hours. And that's needed more than ever.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that, you know, like looking back on my experience with sports in general, I think that a lot of kids fantasize and they dream very big when they pick up a sport, you know, whether it's, you know, basketball, football, baseball, golf, even like you envision yourself at the apex of that sport. And then you kind of start to architect habits and communities that put you on that pathway to achieve those things. And I think that, you know, one of the cruel things about the experience here in the United States as it pertains to golf is that I've seen kids, like as an adult, I've seen kids with immense amount of talent, or even when I was a kid, I saw kids from Chicago that had immense amounts of talent, but even exposure and access has levels to it, right? Like you're good at these flat Chicago bent green, you know, bent grass courses, but if you go down to Florida, if I take you to Arizona, if I take you to, you know, California, or if I take you anywhere else, it's like a whole different learning curve. And it's like, you know, the lack of access, it kind of just like hits you in different ways to the point where I was like, man, maybe we shouldn't be looking at the game of golf so transactionally, right? Because it's almost like, because that's why I think that a lot of people were kind of hitting the ceiling. They were like, hey, I love this game, but there's not enough room here. There's not enough opportunity. There's not enough support. I don't have enough access. I don't have the right resources. I probably can't continue with this. And then they just quit. You know, they just turn their back on the game. And like Laz was saying with relationships is like, you know, if we could just make people fall in love with the game for some of the other values that it has, you know, don't necessarily look to, you know, monetize the sport. Don't necessarily look to, you know, compete at a professional level. Those don't necessarily have to be your goals, nor does that have to be your experience to love and receive a lot of value and benefit from this game. I think if we just retooled and reframed golf domestically, we could get a lot more people that were attracted to it, right? Like I would never want a kid that was good at basketball to say, I'm gonna quit basketball and pick up golf cold turkey, because he likely doesn't have the resources to do that, to like excel at that sport in that capacity. But he can exist in basketball and golf simultaneously. And I guarantee that athlete will have a much more enriched experience in sports as a whole. You know, their coaches are going to play golf. You know, the brands that they're going to associate with all this NIL stuff, those decision makers are going to play golf. Other athletes, you know, their elders in that sport are going to play golf. And so I'm really like trying to keep people away from trying to make so much out of make so much out of the golf experience as far as, you know, how high they aim. I still want them to try to be the best that they can be. But I think that there's value to just understanding golf plus anything else makes for a better life and a better experience, period.
I agree with you wholeheartedly on that, Raj. You know, my youngest son, actually both of my sons just finished playing college football. And whenever Peyton needed a break, he would go to the range, or he would go and find some buddies to go play the university course. So it can be a thing that's really healthy for our mental health at the same time. And really, if you're spending 3.5, 4.5 hours with someone, you are really learning a lot about that particular person. So golf can also be something that learns to build value. It uses values as a bridge. You know, it's hard to go sit and spend that amount of time with someone and not really know a lot about them. verbally and non-verbally out on the golf course. And there's a lot to learn about yourself as well. And it's a game that we can play for a long time. You know, basketball, you can play basketball for a decent amount of time, but like, I'll firsthand tell you, I blew out my Achilles tendon playing basketball 4 months ago. And the first thing I thought was, this is going to mess up my golf game. And so, you know, and basketball is done for me, but I know that I still can I can still play golf for a long time. And there's a lot more to it than just being the transactional part. I think there's a huge piece with the culture crossover. What do you guys think about that? What are the bridges and the gaps that we have in dealing with that?
I mean, oh, go ahead, Larry.
I was going to ask, you know, I think there are a lot of subcultures just within golf. You know, I'm a bit of a purist. I'm a bit of an old school, you know, soul when it comes to the game, you know, and what draws me to the game is you know, this is going to sound a little, I'm going to get vulnerable with all of you, but as earthbound creatures, we cannot fly. And I think I play golf because through the ball, I take flight, and it just so happens that I'm competitive and sometimes I score well, but like to Roger's point earlier, like
So beautiful, man.
I'm deeper into the flight of the ball and the life that I live through that 332 dimples that are flying through the air and whatever speed they're going at. So I think a lot of it is like, what are people into golf for in the first place, right? But within golf, there are little tribes, if you will.
Yeah, and I just think that it's like this, you know, as we try to find contemporary solutions to grow the game, we have to become more comfortable with people not being willing, because the way that I saw it, like the way that my dad played golf and his friends play golf, I won't really know golf in that way. The way I see golf played on the PGA Tour, like, you know, I played competitive amateur events before, but by and large, I'm not going to experience golf that way, nor am I going to get my friends from basketball to subscribe to experiencing the game that way. And so, like, for me, it's been about trying to find ways that people can exist as they are, like in these other spaces, you know, make some few refinements to how they present themselves, obviously, so we're not being disruptive and things of that nature, but coming into the game and feeling like you can be yourself in this sport as long as you respect the etiquette of the sport, you know, like certain parts of the history of the sport, but there is room here to make golf your own experience, you know, and that's something that I've really advocated for, because I thought that was a detriment. Like, you know, a lot of, when my friends found out that I played golf when I was a kid, like I was ashamed of it because they would make fun of me. Like, you play, like all of these assumptions that they would make about who I had to be to play golf, I didn't like that, you know. I'm not saying that, you know, I was doing anything wrong by subscribing to golf as it was presented to me, but I do think that there's room to say that, hey, you as a basketball player, there's elements of your sport that can live here. There's elements of how you carry yourself on the court that can live here. There's elements of how you enjoy yourself leisurely that can live here, and creating solutions for that, you know. And I think that it's showing in some of the wardrobe and stylistic changes that we're seeing in the sport. I think that it's showing in, you know, the introduction of music and speakers to the sport. I think that, you know, the advent of different technologies and golf experiences like Top Golf and things like that make golf more digestible. I think that by and large, a lot of people are accepting, a lot of companies are accepting that people can come into this sport and exist as they are. And then if you want to go deeper, then you start to, you know, pick up on some more of the cues. But even in that journey, I still think that there's room for you to be an individual in this sport. And that's something that throughout history, I don't think that I've seen as much.
I think what you're touching on there, Roger, is heavily on the belonging piece. You know, we talk about diversity. We can get a bunch of people on the course that all look alike or look different, and whatever it may be, come from different parts of the world. That's diversity. That's not the point. We could even say everyone has equal access. That's fine, and we include everyone to come. But when you get to come as you are, and you get to be who you truly are, and you can be comfortable with that, regardless of who's out there, that's the belonging piece that I hear resonating with the words that you're speaking.
Like, hey David, let me ask you, what's the most fun you ever had on a golf course, man? What was the foursome? What was the course? What was the vibe like? painted for. I know you're a PGA guy, so you got to be careful, you know. But
Yeah,
tell me what you like.
I gotta be careful, but yeah, I mean, some of the best times are when you're playing for something else than not just yourself, like team golf. Like even if it's college, or I grew up playing on the Swedish national team, and we had, you know, team events internationally, and even just we actually have like this Swedish championship where the clubs compete against each other, and you know, I'd play with, you know, my brother was on the team, and then there was some like almost 50-year-old guy on the team, and like, you know, all kinds of mixed guys going playing against 13 other clubs, and like some of those weekends we had together are some of the best memories. So I mean, I think golf needs like a little bit of team aspect every now and then. It can kind of be a little you know, lonely out here on tour at times when you can't kind of do your own thing week in and week out. So I definitely enjoy those team type things.
David, it must also be awesome to be able to go to a Friday night golf league in Sweden in summer and play golf till midnight.
That's fantastic. Sweden is, you know, I wouldn't recommend it in the wintertime. There were December days where I never saw the light of day, but then in the summer we'd have dinner and go play golf, and yeah, those are just, you know, unforgettable
Magical.
times. Can go out with brother, mom, and dad, and just have a grandpa. Even my grandpa's 90 now, and he still plays golf. It's incredible. But
That's cool.
yeah, some of that stuff is the best. And yeah, it was funny. A few years back, I was I was home in Sweden. I guess it was must have been the week before the British Open, and I actually decided to play in one of those country club matches that we had, and they made a big deal out of it. But it's just so much fun to do things like that. And then the next week I went and played the British Open. So I miss some of those team aspect things. My brothers were on the team, and I just couldn't pass up the chance.
It is such a rich and proud history. I grew up in Minneapolis, as I was saying, and I went to Gustavus Adolphus College, and our logo was the three crowns, just as your national flag has.
Yeah.
It's just, it is such a beautiful country. I'm a huge Henrik Larsson fan. I'm all in on Sweden, have been for decades. So
Love it.
I'm really
Thank you.
excited that you are, of all people, the guy that's joined us today.
Thanks for your support of my country.
Yeah, love it.
Appreciate it.
But even piggybacking off of what he said, as far as like the best times that he's had on the course, and they being like these team environments, like now that forces us to look at, all right, you know, me being from Chicago and growing up around these types of people, I know that like the camaraderie component is going to be the most memorable experience of all of this. I need to figure out ways to create that camaraderie amongst people that aren't traditionally of the sport of golf. And like, how do I create that competition and camaraderie if they don't feel like they can exist in the golf ecosystem? You know what I mean? So it's just kind of like, because I agree with you, like all of my fondest memories is my boys. We going at it, we competing with each other, we competing against other people, we doing, you know, these big elaborate games that we all playing. And you know, those are some of my fondest memories. But as I think about how I could bring, you know, some of my boys that I've, you know, played basketball with in the past, or like that I've done other things, you know, that are from my neighborhood with, when I think about bringing them into those experiences, golf sometimes has to just like, you know, let go of some of the I guess some of the stuffiness, I want to say, to make room for these people to come out and engage and experience the game the way that I have. You know, and I don't think it's necessarily the person's responsibility to rewire everything about them culturally and competitively and from a language perspective and a style perspective to exist in the sport. I think that, you know, maybe there are things that they should elevate, but golf should kind of meet them as well, you know? And so that's you know, it's great to hear him say that, because, you know, I've the things that I've been championing, you know, over the past, you know, couple of years is just, where can golf meet people versus the other way around?
True solution to growing the game and meeting people where they're at. Yeah, and that's going to take some people letting go of that tight grip they have on the preconceived notions and perceptions about how the game should be. So we got to figure out how to get there. I think a lot of the things that you're doing with all your followers is you're breaking the code on that. So that's just what we have to continue to have conversation about it, so people can hear it. Yeah. How do you market that, Jackie?
Well, I think, I think Roger hits on a really important component of golf that we don't talk enough about, which is the social aspect of it. I mean, kids are social, we're all social beings. And I think the extent to which we can, you just heard David say one of his best times is when he can get together with his friends and kind of not just be about the competition, but be about the camaraderie. So how do we just create more experiences? Golf is very social. I came to the game out of selfish reasons. I had started a small business in the Bay Area. And a good friend of mine said, hey, you've been a competitive athlete. You're probably not going to be able to play basketball a whole lot longer. I think this would be perfect for you. Take up the game off. And I had never played, and I had never on a golf course, but I was fortunate to live. There were two fantastic courses. I lived near the Presidio, but there was 18-hole course called, it's nice, it's beautiful, but there was a small 9-hole course adjacent to it. And it was called, and I could go buy a bucket of balls for $3, and I could play as much and hit as much off of the mats as I wanted to. I got into the game, and then little by little, I grew. I got a little bit better, and I said, you should maybe take a lesson, because the thing about golf is it's a meritocracy. Everybody says, oh, you're just really good because you're an athlete. Well, anybody that's played knows that it is about technique, and the better you are is a result of how hard you work at it. And so it was a different challenge for me, right? I had to learn the mechanics of golf. I had to apply myself to it. But ultimately, all of that aside, what I found out was golf was really social. I started playing golf with people who had different life experiences than me. I learned a lot about people in my community. I learned a lot about people in my environment, and ultimately stayed with the game because there's a lot of downtime in golf, right? While you're looking for your ball, or you're waiting for your shot, or you're sitting on the tee box, or you're walking to the next hole, you get a chance to really learn a lot about the people from different environments, people from different cultures. And so there's a real social piece to it that I think we can elevate. And whether you do that through music, whether you do that through food, before the game or after the game, there's a whole component to it that I think we need to elevate. And, in terms of marketing, look, people do things because it's fun. And the way you create demand is to show people the fun aspects of the game. So we know how to connect to kids who play basketball and who play football. There's a reason all these NFL players are playing in the off season, or these basketball players are taking up the game of golf. It's a wonderfully relaxing way to still get out. You're outdoors. And I always joke, anytime you're on the golf course, it's a day you're not in the office, right? So it kind of frees you up to do some things that are a little bit different. And I think we just need to take some of those things and retool it a little bit to connect with the generation of kids. I'm really focused on kids because I think we have an amazing opportunity, both at the Reno Tahoe Open Foundation, but also with a lot of grassroots organization and the stuff that Roger's doing. There's a reason Nike partnered with him, right? We know that influencers like him can talk to kids that we really care about and expose them to different aspects of the game that they don't normally see. And I think that's the future of the game.
Yeah, a definition of what, and Roger talked about a little bit with kind of introducing people who might identify as golfers, but really they play top golf. That's fine. We need to understand that family life is very different, and the time kids have for activities is very different. There was, I was dropped off at the course or rode my bike to the course, and then I'd come home at like 3:30 or 4 o'clock. Or I would, in the winter, I would go skate at, after school, and I would come back at 9, right? And fathers would go to the club at 10 and come back at 10, but now it's like you got to chase your kid to soccer, and families just don't have like these massive chunks of time. So these reinterpretations and these reimaginations of places like, let's take an example of an 18-hole course that's going to shrink and become a 6-hole course with a really great practice area or something like that. Like, there's so much room for that, not just in our game, but in our society, because of the pockets of time it consumes in our days. And not to mention, like, our mentalities are different now. We need pleasure faster. We need a reason to show up and have fun faster. Putting in a half an hour to get to Long Beach, 20 minutes to warm up, 4.5 hours to play, half an hour to wind down, and another hour to get home because of traffic. Out, not doing that, so tighter windows, more fun, more people. a broader interpretation of what it is. And I think technology in some of our urban centers can make it possible for kids who are going to have a hard enough time to get to the golf course, let alone afford it. Let's use technology to kind of give kids a virtual golf experience through some of these wonderful, simulators that are available right now. That's what I'm really excited about next.
That's pretty exciting
Yeah,
because that's just exposure. Go ahead, Jackie.
Just imagine if Roger Steele showed up in his old neighborhood on the west side of Chicago with a couple of grass mats, a couple of golf clubs and a few buckets for kids to hit the ball into, and cranked up the music and had some good, it was golf on the spot. I mean, there are lots of ways to introduce kids to the game. And if they find that they're interested in the game or that they like the game, I think then you can expand it. I mean, almost all these communities have a little bitty park in there, to last point. It's easy enough to get these kids out and set up environments that are appropriate for where they are, because you're not going to be able to take all these kids to a nice country club, right? But you can certainly meet them where they are. And so how do you do that in a way that's respectful of their environment, but that's also fun?
And I also think just broadening the understanding of what it means to be a golfer, like, as Laz was kind of touching on too, like, if the summation of your golf experiences is just you going to Top Golf and being able to hit on some simulators, like in my book, like you a golfer, you know what I mean? And so I do think that like everybody that has a chance to experience golf in whatever capacity, like I want them to move into the world with the ownership that they are golfers, they are part of this community, they are a part of this game. Because I think for a while, it was just the fact that you had to do so much to kind of earn golf's approval and like a stamp of approval in the sport. But, if we could get people that have existed traditionally in the game, like Laz or, like you, David, to look at somebody and say, hey, man, like, you at Top Golf and you go here once a week or you go here once a month and, you know how to hit the ball and you go on the simulators and you done played 9 holes before, like, you're a part of the same thing that I'm a part of. You're a part of the same community that I'm a part of. And I should welcome you to that. You know what I mean? The same thing like playing pickup basketball, you go to a gym and it's like, even the dude picked up last, like he's still a part of everything that's going on, and I think that golf, we have to be more open to accepting the people that are coming into the game as a part of our community, making them feel welcome and offering them the resources to deepen and heighten their experience if that's what they want to do with it.
Yeah. And to that pickup basketball analogy, like I always tell people, having spent time in New York, there's a very big difference between a pickup game at the Jewish Community Center on the Upper West Side and the Rucker.
Rucker Park.
Everybody's playing basketball. Everybody's playing pickup basketball. I get it, right? There's a really big difference between the action at the par 3 where I grew up and the, let's call it, pretentious, stuffy country club down the street from me, right? We're all playing golf, but these are different little subcultures within the game. And they're different. Some of those differences are beautiful and they can mix in certain places, and we should embrace and run to those activities where they can embrace. Yeah. Where they can collide and kind of come together.
I think so. Bridging those gaps. It's I want to stop for a second. We've got one of our attendees asked a question, and I'm going to throw it to Jackie because it looks like it clicked on like it was assigned to you, Jackie. But it says, someone said, "Thank you for your time and perspective. What will it take to make golf accessible, make it a sustainable career? What will it take to pivot?"
Oh, well, first of all, thank you for the question. It's a great question. I'm not sure I have all the answers, but I do know that it starts with intention. It's a word I feel really strongly about. I think you have to have intention. We joke that if you want to catch the same fish all the time, you fish in the same pond. You have to challenge yourself to decide that this is something that's really important to you, and then understand consumer behavior and then approach it from that perspective. So if you want to diversify the game of golf, whether it's just on a recreational level or on a professional level, then you have to understand who these kids are. I mean, I worked for Nike for 15 years. We know and understand with a tremendous amount of insight who basketball players are, who football players are, who tennis players are. I think if we put the same effort into understanding who young kids are that may have affinity for the game of golf, there are probably a lot of kids that already are drawn to the game but don't know how to get started. How do we engage those kids? We do a lot of stuff around focus groups and talking to kids and understanding what motivates them. And I think once you start to understand these kids, then you can be very intentional about how you bring them into the game. The other piece of this is I love the inference of getting involved in the business of the game of golf, because I think a lot of time we spend time talking about getting people to play the game. It certainly helps if you have a love for the game, but there's also a ton of careers. When I played college basketball, and when I was done with my college basketball playing days, my dad looked at me and said, at the time the WNBA was not around, so I would have had to go to Europe. And he's like, no, young lady, you need to go get a job. And so I'd grown up being an athlete and then trying to figure out how to parlay that into the business of sports. So there's certainly a path to help kids who maybe enjoy the game of golf or love the game of golf or want to get involved in the game of golf to be a great professional golfer. How do we transition them through either internships at the PGA or internships with even the first tee? How do we get more people exposed to the game of golf in order to grow the business overall, not just on the court or on the field or on the pitch, but also outside of that?
Can I jump on that, Diaz, just for a second?
Absolutely. Jump in, Laz.
Specifically to the career side, and thank God for Sandy Cross at the PGA of America. You will really be challenged to find a more white male dominated industry / anything than the PGA of America. And Roger, a little over a year ago, did a beautiful video about the Caucasians only clause of 1961 that prevented anyone from being in the PGA of color, whether you're Asian or Black, anyone, until 1961. So if you want to talk about a generational gap, it's massive in golf. That is why the profession is 98.6% white. That is why it is 93% male. The numbers are staggering, just how white and just how male dominated it is. And it's because of policy. It is because of that law clause put in place. It is the same reason that Black home ownership lags behind white home ownership. It is because of policy. These are not theories, these are facts, right? There are policies and mechanisms put in place that make it exceptionally hard for people of color to find careers in this. If you don't have a mentor base, like I was lucky enough to have through John Miller, good luck being a Black face trying to get a job at one of the top clubs or any club in this game. It's sorry, right? It's very difficult. So thank God for Sandy.
And that's where the B is really important in DEI, because you have to have a sense of belonging, right? You have to have somebody that's championing you, even if you have the skill set to do the job. Because a lot of times when we get, I can only speak from my personal experience, you get in a senior leadership role in a corporate job, but while you're there, you still feel like you're on the outside. So we need to find a way to have people have a sense of belonging once they get there, so that we can keep them and sustain them as well. And that's a large part of the challenges with Blacks or Asians or Latinos in corporate jobs and in the business in general in front of us.
And I just want to throw one little thing onto the end of that, like as far as the belonging piece, I think that the key to creating sustainability in golf is empowering people with the message that they are golfers. They are a part of this community, right? So like with belonging comes, demands. And so if I feel like I'm a golfer, then I go and I look to brands to create experiences and create products that solve for my needs of this sport. And then you get to see brands kind of pivot and create opportunities and create products and solutions for this demand. And then those brands then have to start to hire and bring in new talent that understands this demographic better so that they can come up with more solutions. But it's like, for me, when I get a kid that can say that, yeah, I'm a golfer, I play golf, then I know that we've kind of started this cycle of, okay, now that they're a part of it, they're going to spend their time in the golf course, they're going to spend their time, and money and resources of their parents' money in the sport. And now we have this space where the dollars can kind of do the talking, right? Like brands that are speaking more to this community will receive or see an uptick in revenue. And then other brands will kind of have to respond to this. So I think that the power is in getting your friends and family out to the golf course, playing more golf, and starting to really gravitate towards the things that represent you in the golf space, so that brands know that there's, you know, power here in these communities, and then they start creating things that speak to these communities to streamline the experiences.
That's great. That's great. You know, we are about out of time, so we do have one more question. I'm sorry we weren't able to get to all the questions, but I think this last question is one that is going to be a good takeaway if I can get responses from all of you guys. And the question is, how can people that have traditionally had all of the access and opportunities become advocates and support DEIB in the game? So basically, how can people become allies? What are you guys' thoughts on that?
A lot of thoughts. Who wanna jump?
Well, I'll hit it again, but like, donate money to Youth on Course. Seriously, you know, it's that simple. And then the other thing I would say is, it's perplexed me for the last couple of years as I've worked on these projects in urban centers to hear people say, hey, how do we get more people of color in the game, and how do we make the game look different? And I would urge people to get out of your gated community and go to some of the incredibly rich and wonderful places of the game where people that look like us live and play, and you'd be surprised how much fun you can have. I mean, I was at Chester, Washington on Saturday, and they were going through like the top 50 soul countdown on the speakers as people were hitting balls. And I'm talking to a woman for about 2 minutes about a song by Angie Stone. And about a minute and 58 seconds into this conversation, I realized she doesn't speak English. She only speaks Korean, but she kept nodding and let me sing the song. And so like there are a lot of places where we are, and there are people that look different than the typical white person that plays golf at, you know, such and such country club. Like, honestly, we're all golfers. We are all in this community. Come out and get to the places where you've never been before. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I just want to piggyback off of that, Laz. Like, some of the best experiences that I've had, or the things that I've seen that have been most interesting in golf, is not when, you know, you take somebody that's never been to a country club and take them out there and they have that experience, but when it's the other way around.
It's
like,
that flip. Yeah. Yeah.
When I take some of my country club homies out to Columbus Park on the west side,
That's
and it's
it.
like, you know, they see all of these guys, and it, you know, everybody just loves golfing because they love golf, they love them. And it's like, oh man, when you coming back, man? Make sure you come
Fences
back.
down. Yeah, exactly, man.
I need to get my money back, man. You know, and so it's like, you know, but I just really think that, you know, for people that really want to advocate, it is about spending time in those environments. And, you know, Youth on Course is a great resource. You could take a group of kids to a Youth on Course facility, y'all play in a foursome, and y'all just have this experience, and you can actively participate in not only broadening your horizons, but broadening theirs. And then together y'all can find solutions as far as like where there's crossover between those two experiences, and where they need to change, and start finding these happy mediums and reshaping the game for good, you know?
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's great.
Well, I want to thank you all for coming on the show today and being able to talk about all this, because it really takes a village when we're talking about the things that we want to accomplish, particularly with DEIB and the world of golf, and having everyone get the opportunity of sharing the love, you know, from all your wonderful backgrounds and what you're doing, and David on the tour, who we're rooting big time for you this weekend, buddy.
Hey,
But
thanks for having me on today. It's you know, you guys are very inspirational. I love, you know, the work you're trying to do, and you know, I think golf is heading in the right direction, but it's going a little too slow. So you guys are, you know, trying to speed it up, and I love it. And I wish I could help. Please let me know if I can in any way. And
I got a solution for you, man. You know, just like we was talking about that crossover piece, why don't you just set up a trip for me to come over to Sweden?
Oh, there you go.
So I could just go ahead and get the little Swedish golf experience, and then I could bring it back with you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
you can't go by yourself though, Raj. You cannot. I have to be there with you to help you out so you don't get lost.
Hey
You should
David,
come.
no, but you got the little play-in thing that y'all had for the academies y'all went to. Maybe we have a play-in situation for everybody.
You want
I
to go
just
back
want
to
to
high
have
school?
lunch with Jackie. You go to Sweden. You guys go to Sweden. I just want to have lunch with Jackie and hang out and play a little bit of golf. That's fine. We just stay
There we
sober.
go. There we go.
The
We'll
one
go
thing I
to
will say
Bandit up
about
there
David-
with Jackie. Well,
One
thank
thing
you
I will
guys
say
for all
about
joining
David-
today. Oh,
The
go
one
ahead.
thing I'll
Go
say
ahead, Jackie.
quickly before we leave, Diaz, is, David has a lot that he can teach us. As Sweden's a small country, and the game of golf has grown tremendously, and they have a handful of really great ambassadors, starting with Sorenstam and Heinz and now David Lingmerth. And I think, that country is wired towards a different sport, and now you're seeing the game really take hold from a grassroots perspective. So I think there's a lot that you can teach us. So even though we're talking about a slightly different consumer, don't be shy to share your thoughts, because I think there's a lot for us to learn as well. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Absolutely. And for all the listeners out there, please follow every one of these individuals. You'll see what they're doing, the wonderful work, and you're looking for more how to get involved and how to make a difference. No matter where you come from, whatever background you are, solutions lie within all four of these people that are on this screen. Thank you, Bank of America and Barracuda Championships. Looking forward to a great, wonderful competitive weekend where David wins by 3 strokes on Sunday. But other than that, it's all good. In the meantime, everyone
Mark
be
Baldwin.
well and take care.
All right.
Thank you,
Thank you
Diaz.
guys.
Thank you all.
Diaz.
Appreciate
Thank
you.
you.